Well, welcome to our thought for the day on Thursday, the 7th of May. And we're looking at Psalm 55. It's quite a long psalm, so I'm not going to read it. So if you want to get your Bibles and have a read of it first, maybe pause the video, have a read of it, and then come back. But a psalm of David that can be split up in a number of ways. And today I'm going to go for a psalm of 3 parts. In the first 8 verses, we find David who's pleading with the Lord to hear him, pouring out his feelings. David is in mental anguish. His thoughts are overwhelming him. He's distressed, he's distraught, and he's in despair. The wicked are saying things about David that are causing him suffering. It is almost possible on these words to enter into the fear and trembling with David. He's in such a bad way that all he wants to do is to run away. He even seems willing to run to a desert, a place of barrenness and nothing. He wants to run from this storm and this tempest. Running away is so often our own reaction when life overwhelms us. I can think of a few situations where running is the right thing to do, but mostly it isn't the answer. And for most of us, it isn't physically possible anyway. Just now, it would be good to be able to run away, to escape this virus, to run from it, but it isn't possible. It has to be sheltered from, it has to be faced and endured. But it makes me think of the disciples in a boat, on a lake, in a storm that was beginning to overwhelm their boat. We read about it in Mark chapter 4. Where was Jesus while the disciples feared for their lives? He was asleep on a cushion in the back of the boat. So often we try to ride out the storm by ourselves, but we need to remember, like the disciples eventually did, to call to Jesus, to cry out to the one who calms the inner turmoil of the storm and gives us peace. He never leaves us. So that was part 1 of the psalm. Part 2, verses 9 to 21. In these verses, we find out what is causing David's anguish, or more precisely, who is causing it. It isn't someone he's been in battle with, an enemy, but his friend, someone who he has enjoyed fellowship with. That someone is now insulting him, threatening him. I'm not sure that we can identify who this friend was, but it certainly mirrors the relationship between Jesus and Judas, a betrayal by a close companion that we all know about. If you can relate to this situation, where someone who you have once regarded as a friend has betrayed you, then you will know something of the anguish that David felt. It hurts. It really, really hurts. But in these situations, we need to be like David and call on the Lord. Like David, I need to take my hurts to the Lord, to trust that the Lord hears me and will rescue me. And most importantly, I need to leave that hurt with the Lord. It's not my place to judge, because the plank in my eye is probably much bigger anyway. But I need to learn to let go of the hurt and to forgive those who have hurt me. And then part 3, the last 2 verses of this psalm, Psalm 55, verses 22 and 23. It reads, "Cast your cares on the Lord, and he will sustain you. He will never let the righteous be shaken." And it ends with, "But as for me, I trust in you." This psalm was one that I read a few days ago in my daily readings. And before my readings that day, I listened to a worship song from a playlist on my phone. I chose that song deliberately, but I can't remember for the life of me what it was now. But the playlist continued before I had a chance to stop it. The next track is a song by Governor B. Not one of my go-to artists, but it's on my playlist because someone on the Westboro WhatsApp group had suggested it a few weeks back. It's not a song I'm very familiar with, but I carried on listening. It's called "Cast Your Cares." And as I began to read from verse 12 in this psalm, I wrote in the margin of my Bible, "Cast your cares," as the song I had just listened to fitted so well with David's calling on the Lord. And then I got to verse 22. But these two verses take me to Matthew chapter 11. Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. In my own reflections that day, when I read this psalm, I wrote, but what if it is me who has hurt someone? Well, casting my burdens on Jesus means not just giving him all the stresses and anguishes that weigh me down, but it also means taking up his yoke and learning from him, and also knowing his forgiveness. It means not just giving up my burdens, but giving up me and my own personal desires. It means becoming more like Jesus, listening to his voice as we spend time resting in his presence, walking in his footsteps, and following his ways, for he is gentle and humble of heart. As we cast our cares when the burden is too heavy to carry, we find rest. We know love, we know forgiveness, and we can trust him to sustain us. Whether we are the betrayed or whether we have been the betrayer. May you know that love, that forgiveness, and may you learn to trust in him as he sustains you. Amen.